I was putting up like dumb videos on Instagram and I just saw Jay follow me and I was like, holy shit. I put on my manifestations, shoot a movie with Jay Duplass. And he calls me up and he's like, I want to make a movie and I want you to be the star of it. You want to do it? And I was like,
we are the manifestors of our own destiny. Are you going to be making art? Are you going to do it? It's on us to create the beauty and the culture and the joy that we want to experience every day.
Just do it and not worry about what other people are telling you to do or not do. It can happen.
Well, this is a big moment for both of you guys. It's your first solo directing effort.
It is.
And you know, Michael, obviously this is like a launch pad for you. So that's got to be like, you know, like,
it's wild.
You know, very cool, but possibly deranging also, you know, if you don't keep yourself grounded.
Exactly.
But I think like it's anachronistic that this movie, the reviews are incredible. Everybody's very excited about it. And it's actually getting a theatrical release. Like a movie like this doesn't go into the theaters anymore.
No.
Like it is like out of time. Like it's this bizarre unicorn.
That's the thing about Hollywood, which you know well, which is like, it's very easy to confuse talking about making movies with making movies. They are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And you know, my brother and I, over time, we really forced ourselves into, you know, an almost compulsive creativity and we even had a philosophy around it, which was just for me and him, but it started coming out. And now it's like I guess it's like an independent film mantra, which is make movies, not meetings. Mm-hmm. Because even when you get involved in Hollywood, they just want to talk about stuff. And our philosophy, even when we have a meeting with the studio, would be like, we love to make this movie with you. We are making this movie on August 15th. If you would like to be a part of it, that would be fantastic because we don't want to have to pay for it with the measly $17,000 we can scrounge together. But we are making it, you know, and Hollywood being essentially a junior high dating scene, the less you need them, the more they want you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Instead of being on your knees and begging and
100%.
being in this, you know, weak place from which to negotiate, just being like, we're doing it. Like, do you want to get on the bus or not?
Yeah.
Like, we're cool, but wow, that's a power move.
It is. It was our own little weird power move. And so I kind of returned to that place. You know, I was coming off of a long period of big things in my life happening. And it might not be perceptible to other people in the public because we do produce a lot of things and we support people and we're always involved in helping people make things, TV shows, movies, whatever it may be. But, you know, over the last 7 or 8 years, I've essentially gone through like a loving breakup with my brother about us making art, you know, in a forced march, almost immigrant style way, you know, where we've come to realize that, like, you know, I actually still want to be the Coen brothers on some level. I'm just going to do it on my own. I want to be a writer director. My brother's more runs a tiny little studio. Our company is basically a small studio. So it's been like a long journey, but ultimately what led me to Michael and to this project is, you know, I was going through that breakup, trying to figure out how I was going to make movies again. We had the pandemic, which kind of destroyed independent films because a COVID budget on an independent film is more expensive than the independent film to do the protocols, basically. And then we had our strikes, and towards the end of the strikes, I realized, you know, I had not directed a movie in 14 years. I've been supporting everybody else and making their stuff. And I just got to the point where I was like, I need to make a movie come hell or high water, which was exactly the place I was at when we made the Puffy chair, which is, you know, at that time I was like, I gotta do it, you know, because, you know, I hadn't made a movie in 14 years and Hollywood is what have you done lately? And so I just thought to myself, I was like, I need to return to the place of the Puffy chair where I can just tell a true story and use the people who are living it. And I was just thinking about my life, and I had gotten to know Michael a little bit
via
met.
Instagram.
Yeah, how did you guys meet?
So I was putting up like dumb videos on Instagram. They weren't dumb. They were very smart and sophisticated. But it was Buffalo Bill talking to his Alexa.
Yeah,
Buffalo Bill, the mass murderer.
You got a lot of videos up there.
Yeah,
of you,
exactly.
Like, playing characters and stuff.
Yeah. So I did this one, and also I would do Brene Brown a bunch because I was such a Brene Brown fan, and I would play I would just be talking about like random stuff that she would be like yelling at her husband basically about. Is like, Steve, you know what I really did? I went to, I got ice cream the other day. You know what ice cream stands for? I courageously encourage courage, redeeming myself of shame. And I just saw Jay follow me and I was like, holy shit, like my hero follows me. Someone I've looked up to for years. I am going it was crazy. I was just like, and I had a short film at the time that I was looking for an actress for. And I was like, you know what? This guy helps out a lot of people. Why not me? Mm-hmm. And I just sent him a DM. And I was like, hey, Jay, I'm a huge fan of yours. All this stuff that I listed. I'm trying to shoot this short film. If you could help, great. If not, it just means the world that you read this. That was in September of 2021. He got back to me in February of 2022. And he was like, dude, I don't check Instagram. I don't know how it works.
I don't know how it works. I know
old.
people think I'm savvy. Yeah. I'm old and I don't know how social media works.
Yeah, to the point now where we'll be together and he's like, can you help me post this? Like I'm trying to make sure it's not cropped out. And I was like, I got you. Come here. And he messaged me back and he was like, send me the script. I sent him the script and he was like, come over to my house. And I was like, I was doing Buffalo Bill videos and you want me to come over your house where your kids live? Okay, sure. And we just have this great lunch. He helps me with the short. I shoot it, I edit it, I direct it, and then I come back. And this is the stuff that is unheard of in Hollywood, in my opinion. He took time out of his day to help me. And then we came back for the edit and he stopped and he was like, okay, this is where you cut here. This is where and he just showed me how to do it. And God, I'm getting emotional this early.
We're going to cry.
Yeah, we're going to cry. And it was just the first person that really took time with me, And it was, then I took him out to lunch to thank him in December of 2022. And I gave him a Sidney Pollack picture of Tootsie because he said it was one of his favorite movies. And I told him a little bit about my story, how I got sober. And after that lunch, I put on my manifestations, shoot a movie with Jay Duplass, number 2. Number 1's always stay sober every year. And he calls me up in April and he's like, hey man, I want to make a movie and I want you to be the star of it. You want to do it? And I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. What? And he was like,
I would have thought that you had been, putting together a script and that on the heels of, Jay sort of opening his door to you, that would lead to you then coming to him with a script.
No.
And that's not the way it happened.
No. It was I came over his house and the car that I parked out front here doesn't have AC, and I showed up to his house shirtless. And
I happen to be looking out of the window, and I see this large bear of a man getting out of his tiny little Jetta without a shirt on, and using his shirt to fan himself dry.
Yeah, that's some Jack Black shit.
Yeah,
truly. I was just like, this guy is a living movie right here. I'm like, first of all, I was like, that's going in the movie for sure.
Yeah, we shot in December though, so that's
we shot in December in Baltimore. That was the one thing we couldn't pull off.
Yeah, but literally, I'm like, I see him out of the corner of my eye, and I'm shirtless. I'm like, hey Jay, how are you? Just give me a minute, just need to get my back dry. And then we just kind of I would just kind of tell him stories, and then also stories and then locations that we had in Baltimore for free, that we kind of backed this movie in together.
Yeah, we kind of, same as Puffy Chair. Mm-hmm. At the time, that was a movie about my brother and his girlfriend, and my brother trying to make it as a musician. And, we had a touring band. We had this tiny town in Maine that Katie was from, and, we had a bunch of desperate people, and by a bunch I mean 7. Mm-hmm. 7 desperate people, my brother, myself, our actors, our girlfriends, now our wives, So it was the similar philosophy, which is, Michael had really opened his heart to me and told me what he'd been through. I mean, he had already established himself as a hilarious person, but then I learned his origin story essentially of becoming sober, and it just inspired me. And I was like, I think this is it. And Michael's originally from Baltimore, and one of his best friends, David Bonnet, was there and was looking for work. He had been Paul Rubens' assistant, and Paul Rubens had just died, and he was looking for work and had returned to Baltimore from LA, and we were just like, I think we can create a movie in Baltimore that's essentially, semi-autobiographical, and it will be, as authentic as a movie could possibly be. Because ultimately, in the end, look, we're in the age of TikTok and social media and all this stuff, but like, you and I grew up watching movies. That was a dominant art form. It was the dominant art form for 100 years.
You
too.
Yeah. You too. I mean, I would go to the movies by myself and sit there and just like escape for an hour. It was like that, and drugs and alcohol is what I loved.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, I am always focused on like, a couple of things, which is like, what can I give people that they need, that people are craving? And also, how can I platform beautiful, incredible people who are not being seen and who are not being witnessed and who are inspiring to me and can, lift people up and give them a great time in a movie theater. And so Michael was it, and I knew inherently that he was scrappy enough to go to Baltimore with me and make a movie on the streets of Baltimore in the middle of the night in freezing cold weather for no money, and just like make a piece of art and just hope that, hope and dream that, it would be seen by people one day and celebrated by people.
Yeah, there's like a couple things that stand out for me in what you just shared. The first thing is like you're approaching it from an audience member and from a perspective of like, how can I serve the audience? Like, how can I help uplift this guy who I feel like needs to be seen more? And like, how can I serve the audience rather than like, how can I look good as a director? Or how can I, it's a service-minded approach, right? Which is obviously like it's a way of being in relationship with the world. That's a very, kind of AA sensibility. But there's this earnestness in the film, which is rare. Like it's there's a sweetness to it. It's not cynical like our time. There is it's uplifting and heartfelt and vulnerable, and these characters are kind of just laying it all out there, unapologetically. And there's real beauty in that, and you just don't see movies like that anymore, and especially like low budget independent films. Like it's just It did like take me back, decades to when these were the kind of movies that were coming out all the time.
Yeah, that's been the most incredible thing that we've experienced in terms of audience reaction. I mean, we've only been to film festivals so far, and we've won an inordinate amount of audience awards. I've never had this experience before, even with not giant movies, but many of the larger movies that I've made, and that comment has kept coming back to us is, this is actually the movie I want to see on a Saturday night with my partner or with my friends. Like, this is the movie I want. This is the movie that will get me back into the movie theater.
Yeah. And also like the people have come up to me and like said, I want to live in a world where this movie exists. Yeah. And like, that's been like the sweetest compliment to me.
Do. Yeah. I definitely do.
And the wild part is that, everyone who came to work on this movie, it's really a self-serving or self-fulfilling prophecy in a way, because when you can only pay people the bare minimum, they only will be there unless they want to be there, unless they really care and need to be there spiritually. So we had 15 people on the ground in Baltimore who were just like crying with us every day as we were shooting these scenes and laughing with us every day and just having the time of our lives. Like, the experience of making the movie together was for us the way that I think the audience is experiencing the movie, and that's been very refreshing, because it is so easy to look out into the world and get discouraged, but like it's just a reminder that it's on us to create the beauty and the culture and the joy and the love that we want to experience every day. Like we are the manifestors of our own destiny. And, you know, at the time, you know, I mean, it's a very cheap movie, but movies still cost money. And, you know, the philosophy behind it was kind of like, we're going to lose money on this movie. You know what I mean? We were kind of
like, maybe we'll put it up on YouTube or something?
Yes, yes. I mean, it was like...
Jay has told me several times, like, we're not going to make money on this.
Yeah, but you're probably like, I don't care. I'll pay you.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
truly. I was like, how much you need from me? Like, I got a little bit in the savings, you know? Whatever.
Yeah, that point of like, take responsibility for creating the beauty you want to see in the world is similar to... that speech that your brother gave at South by Southwest about like no one's coming to save you.
Yeah,
like
the cavalry isn't coming.
It's an industry in which there's a lot of gatekeepers, and you were just mentioning like you got to raise money, but like that power move of saying like we're doing this no matter what speaks to that idea that we're not waiting for permission from many of these people. And yes, the tools that are available now democratize like access to this kind of storytelling. It still costs money, you know.
Still costs money, but you don't need
so
all of
much
these people.
Cheaper. And I think there was once, you know, just this grand romance about like making a studio film or whatever, being anointed by the powerful people in Hollywood who are, you know, kind of pulling you out of the crowd and saying, this is the next guy.
Yeah.
That feels like it's gone, which kind of opens it up to everybody. To just like go out and make shit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, making stuff is, it's the most fun thing to do, and it does create your own reality. And it is exactly what you're saying that, I mean, most of the people that I know, I mean, look, we're considered an overnight success, but by the time I had made the Puffy chair, I was 31 years old. I had made 3 failed features. I had made a bunch of shitty short films. I had finally made a couple of short films that had some traction. So Puffy Chair was the last ditch effort for me. I mean, it was like, I was, you know, had just turned 30 and I was like, I can't do this to myself anymore. I can't drag myself through this torture and my family through that. People were worried about me, you know, but ultimately, I loved making movies, you know, that's what I loved doing. And I just kept doing it. And everyone that I know that is successful, it's never an overnight success story. It's attrition. It's you know, forging forward when all the signs even tell you shouldn't be successful. This isn't going to work, you know? I mean, it's similar to what you created with your podcast. It's like, you know, following people around and going into their hotel rooms with little cameras that you barely knew how to work at the time, you know, because ultimately your heart was in the right place and you knew that there were stories to tell that needed to get out there. That's what I've learned over and over again. It's weird that I've been doing this for like 30 years. I mean, I've only been successful for 20 of them, but it's funny because I feel like the answer to every question at a film festival is make an undeniably great film, you know, because everyone wants to, how do I get this? How do I get that? You know, how are we going to get a tiny movie distributed with no stars at a time when people are saying movies are dead, you know, like, and independent films are off Broadway now, you know? And the answer is, I don't care. I love this guy. He has a story to tell. We'll talk about Liz a little bit, but his co-star Liz Larson, I fell in love with her. I learned about her personal story and incorporated that. And I was like, this is a story that I just want to tell, and I just have to trust that it's going to go into the world. And, you know, contrary to what everyone was predicting, we are actually going to make money on this movie, and we're going to release it theatrically in movie theaters this fall. And it's totally insane. It's you know, I'm sitting here talking like I created this or believe in this philosophy, but I also doubted. I mean, I told Michael, I was like, we need to be prepared.
This is not going to sell.
To make no money. We need to be prepared to maybe have trouble at festivals. We need to be prepared for all these things. We just need to know that, like, we want to tell this story. It's very, very important to us, and we're going to do this, and that's going to be enough, and then we're going to see where it goes.
And the coolest thing was within 24 hours of us premiering at South by, I was walking down the street with Jay, and he got a text, and it was like, we got our first
offer, distribution
and
offer.
that ended up being the one.
Yeah, IFC.
As a very proud Gen X elder, caring about skincare has always been basically like something that was just off the table. But listen, times change. I've certainly changed enough at least to understand how ridiculous it is to not care about my largest organ and actually be proactive about supporting it. I don't have time for elaborate routines between the podcast, family, everything else I'm doing. I really need something simple, something convenient, and most importantly, something that is evidence-based and actually works, all of which led me to Bon Charge, which is a company that builds science-backed wellness solutions that fit your life. My personal favorite is their red light face mask. This has become part of my daily routine. It's award-winning, it's lightweight, flexible, and contours to your face perfectly. Since using it, I think my skin looks a bit better, more smoother, just healthier overall. Plus, secretly, it's pretty fun to wear. It's also rechargeable and works for all skin types. So go to boncharge.com and use coupon code RICHROLL to save 15%. In a world that's just flooded with tech for tech's sake, it's rare to find innovation that truly elevates, that serves the human in body, but also in soul. And that's why I stand behind On, a brand pushing technology forward with intention to create elevated gear that elevates us all. Consider LightSpray, a breakthrough in next-gen high-performance shoe technology that replaces laces with this revolutionary ultra-lightweight single-piece upper that moves with you, not against you. Tested with elite athletes, designed for anyone who values performance without compromise, head to on.com/richroll to experience technology-driven performance wear. Well, a great story, well told, is the most powerful thing in the world and can transcend all obstacles, ultimately.
Yeah.
And just believing in that and doubling down on that is like inspirational. But Michael, like you mentioned, okay, the story is semi-autobiographical.
Yes.
So like we gotta do a little bit of
we
what it was
go
like,
deep.
what happened, and what it's like now.
Sure.
Because your story is pretty wild.
Yeah. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, and everyone was always like, "Ooh, The Wire." I think it's more like Hairspray, not more light and fun. But, grew up with my mom, my dad, two sisters, and then my parents got divorced when I was 8. And then my neighbors became my step family. So we kind of had this merger family. And, I just didn't like being like the talk of Towson, our small, we were kind of like, everyone was talking about the Strassners and all this stuff. And also I think I put a lot of that on me. I think just like so many other alcoholics and addicts.
There was, meaning like there's some drama coming out of that house.
Yeah. And, it all was like it was a little bit of a tough, upbringing. And then, but when I found, ironically enough, I smoked for the first time when I was 10, little weed outside of CVS.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
It was actually not even behind CVS. We were at the front door to the right. So just two 10-year-olds smoking pot out of an apple in Baltimore, which was really great. And then the funny thing is the next day, I went over to my friend's house and I was like, we can smoke any kind of weed. Because I'm 10 years old, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. And we go to the pantry and we get dill weed out. And we roll that up in computer paper and we smoke that. And we did not get high, but we hurt our throats. And Miss Pontier came home and she's like, why does it smell like matches in here? What have you been lighting? But my whole point is once I did it, I couldn't wait to do it again. And the same thing happened with alcohol, and then ironically enough, when I was 12, I took 5 shots, went to a party and then threw up everywhere. That night, my mom picked me up and went to the hospital, got my stomach pumped.
At 12.
At 12. And
that's for real.
Yeah. And I knew that I didn't feel well, but I couldn't wait to do it again. And, it was just more of that. And also, the thing that I also realized was I loved drinking and doing drugs, but I loved making my mom laugh. That was like the two things, you know. And my heroes were like Robin Williams, Chris Farley, Bill Murray were all people I looked up to.
There's definitely some Bill Murray in this character.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And there's some Farley, you know, physicality wise. Like I love that this movie has physical comedy because I feel like I never see that anymore. And done like actually like not like lowbrow, you know. But you know, but the thing is, like growing up in Baltimore, there was really never any talk about like. I think now it's more conversational, but like, you know, I got in a hit and run when I was 19 because I reached down for a Crunchwrap Supreme at a red light and I hit a fire hydrant and then 2 parked cars. And then I got out on foot and called my mom and I was like, Mom, you got to come get me. And she's like, Michael, you have the car. And I was like, well, I know where it's parked. And then I came back and got arrested and everything. And my best thinking was, I guess I should join a fraternity now. You know, the opposite of like, maybe this guy's got a problem. Maybe this guy needs some help. Maybe
let's institutionalize this.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely.
But like, you know, consequences really didn't happen for me. You know, I moved out to LA and like
to be a comedian,
to be an actor. Yeah, to be an actor and to follow in like the footsteps of my heroes. You know, I wanted to be on SNL so bad. Like that was all I ever wanted, you know. And I got that opportunity. Back in 2017, I went to New York and tested twice. The second time I tested, I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll be living here. Like, this is going to be great. Not sober at the time. And when I came back, I was just like super depressed. And, you know, the way the movie starts is, should we give it away? Or
Yeah, you can tell how the movie starts.
The way the movie starts is a failed suicide attempt. And, you know, I was downstairs in my basement and my best thinking was, I don't think I want to be here anymore, you know? So
on the heels of not getting the SNL.
Not getting the SNL, things just not going my way or whatever type of story I had to tell myself. And I tried to hang myself and luckily the belt broke. And the next day was the first day I actually asked for help. And, you know, like, I just look back on that and it's like crazy to me that like it could have went another way. And I might not have been here.
Astronomical odds that you are here.
Yeah, exactly. And
the other piece that is similar to the story in the movie is kind of getting booted out of your improv group, right?
Yeah.
Like, was it the Groundlings or
so
Upright Citizens or what?
Yeah. So basically, what happened was I was in the Sunday company there, and they told me to take a leave of absence, and you'll be welcome back with open arms. And
so they wanted you to get sober.
Yeah, they wanted me to get sober, and so I did that. And it was like the first time that like consequences were like there, you know. And when they said that, like, it's the best thing that ever happened to me because I got sober and I haven't had a drink since, you know. And
did you go to treatment or did you just like show up
have insurance.
Just go to a meeting, or how did that
went to
happen?
A meeting. This guy met me at a Starbucks and he like literally, I didn't understand why he was meeting me. I didn't understand like why he was taking time out of his day.
What's the
angle here? Yeah. And he was like, you know, someday you're going to do it for somebody else. And he took me to my first meeting on a Monday morning. And ironically enough, it was like I was driving Uber for one of my odd jobs out here. I was driving Uber and I picked up somebody at like 7 a.m. in the morning one time, like 2 years before this. And I was like, where are you headed? And she's like, I'm just going to like this AA, because I'm so nosy. I'm going to this AA meeting. And I was like, oh, I didn't know they do that early. That's awesome. Congrats. I hope, you know, I hope you figure it out. And
meanwhile, you're drunk driving her probably.
Yeah, exactly. And ironically enough, that's the first meeting I walked into.
Yeah, it was like, did you clock it? Like you remembered, like, oh, I remember I dropped somebody off here. Yeah. So at least I know where that one is.
Wild.
Yeah. And, you know, like, I kind of like, I didn't want to be there. You know, I did not want to be sober. I did not want, because I was also like so afraid of what life looked like without this thing that I had for so long.
Well, that's a huge theme that I want to like put a pin in that, because I want to dig into that a little bit more deeply. But before we do that, like I suspect that there's this, you know, you mentioned Farley, right? So if you're trying to like, mimic your heroes, you know, it's sort of that rock star thing. It's like, well, this is the lifestyle, man. I'm going to go to LA, and it's like, you're trying to live the like, you know, Swingers, the movie lifestyle. Like you got to be at these clubs, and you got to, you know, show up, post up, and be the guy, be the center of attention, and all that kind of stuff that is like fueling your desire to be like seen and recognized. And
yeah, and the way like, you described your comedy performances at Groundlings, like Michael was known as like the guy who can like save a sketch with like a topless belly flop at any point in time, you know, is just like
a
sacrificing your body, like, you know, just going nuts on stage. That was a big part of
there was just this one thing that I did where I was like this southern gym teacher that just like kept on wanting to get into the glory days, and like would just get like tackled and like sacked, like, and I was taking hits on stage, and like I had main company members be like, you're not actually like there's mats down. I'm like, no, I'm just taking it, you know? And it's like, I just love the pain of it. Like whatever I could do for a laugh, I would do it, you know? And like, and I also thought that like, I'm more funny when I'm drunk. Like those go together. Yeah. Like that's not a thing. And thank God there's like there wasn't iPhones back in 2016 when I was going to weddings. 'Cause you know, I was the guy who would like put one sock on my foot and another sock on another appendage, and then be like, anyone see my other sock? Yeah. And women didn't like that, you know, like my buddies' fiancés were like, Michael has a problem. And you know, it was just like, I just didn't want to deal with it. I was like, this is what my heroes did. Like Farley got nude, like Farley did like big physical stuff, Belushi. And like Belushi,
you can just list them off.
And ironically
in
enough,
every art form too, that idea that drugs and alcohol are the portal to creativity. Like we know that that's not true, but it is a deeply entrenched thing. And the prospect of having to break up with that is terrifying. It's like an existential crisis. Like I won't be able to I have to be willing to not be able to do this thing that I love, that brought me here, that I'm so invested in order to save my life.
100%. And like, ironically enough, the first book I read when I got sober was The Chris Farley Show. And the book opens up with him talking to a group of addicts and saying, if he can do it, anybody can do it. And I was like, I had no idea that he, you know, like tried and like had time. And I read that page and I was like, okay, well, yeah, if he could do it, maybe I could do this, you know, like he wasn't just a, you know, crazy drunk person, you know, and ironically enough too, Tommy Boy was completely sober, and it's like the best performance. I feel like
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So this is like the quiet theme, you know, kind of lingering behind the scenes throughout the film.
Yeah,
that's like, you know, clawing at him.
Yeah, the movie is set during 6 months of sobriety, and that's one thing that Michael talked about a lot, is how there aren't a lot of movies about early sobriety. There's movies about what it takes to get sober, because all the wildness, you know, gets to come out in a film. But this movie really is about, you know, being early sober and still being an alcoholic, and really not knowing how to do it. And, you know, there were so many poignant moments about that when Michael was telling me his personal story that made me want to tell this story. And, you know, one of them was, you know, his desperate fear of like never being funny again. That was your biggest fear in terms of getting sober, is like being funny is everything that you were at the time and what you felt like you had to offer the world. And if you are sober and you can't do that, obviously you made the decision that it wasn't worth living in that moment. But, you know, one of the things that's so amazing about Michael, and probably the linchpin of what really made me want to make this movie, is when he told me about his suicide story and how the belt broke. He told me because he was holding a little bit of holiday weight at the time. Which, you know, the wherewithal of a person to be in tears telling me about the day that he was supposed to die, and also make a hilarious joke. I was like, if you don't mind, that's going in the movie.
Of course,
Yeah.
And like I realized when I would start, once I had gotten some time in sobriety and like, would start sharing at meetings and such, and like I would start like hearing the room laugh about the stuff, and I was like, oh, like it's like the first time I heard laughter in sobriety was in the rooms, and like seeing people like open up their heart, but also like have a room full of alcoholics laughing at stuff or drug, and it was just like, this is magic to me. Oh, I found that community that I have always wanted, and like I did not do it by myself either. Like a lot of people helped me get there,
Some of whom happen to be mutual friends.
Yes.
Yeah. Shout out Scotty G.
Always Scotty
I know
G.
he's listening and watching.
Yeah.
He comes up a lot.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's the best.
And so at this point so now what do you have, like 6 or 7 years?
7 years,
Like
yeah.
that?
Yeah, 7 years.
Yeah.
And it's just been like, it truly has been like the most crazy experience ever. Like I was saying this the other day, is like, all I ever wanted was, get on SNL, get on a TV show, and like, that's it. And like my God, whatever, has taken me on this whole other journey where like, I didn't think we were going to win the audience award. I didn't think Baltimore was going to take me all over the world and all over the country to like show this movie. Like, that's not what I had in mind at all. And it's been so much better. And like, that's like the most magical thing to me, is like getting to experience this movie with audiences and like hearing them die laughing at like I just, I sit in the theater and just like listen, because it's just because I don't know when I'm going to have this experience again.
And you get to be present.
Yeah, 100%. And like, I'm like this kind of creep that like kind of sits in the back. And it's just been like the most magical.
Well, it's also an incredible lesson in the idea that the worst thing that could happen to you is maybe the best thing that could happen to you. Getting fired from Groundlings, getting rejected by Saturday Night Live. You've said to me several times that a lot of your friends who have gone on to be on Saturday Night Live have said it's the most traumatic experience, miserable traumatic experience.
And I want a miserable life so bad. Like, that's what I want. Like, it's like, I want to be.
I got to take this misery to the max.
But it's a romantic misery.
It is.
100%.
It is. Yeah. But as you get to know people who are on Saturday Night Live, they're just like, almost didn't make it. And you've said several times, like, you really don't think you would have made it if
I went there when I was still drinking, I would be dead.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind, because I would have enjoyed the part. I mean, it would have been the party and everything.
Well, it would have ratcheted up what you were already doing at Groundling Sunday Company tenfold.
Yeah.
You're on national television, and in your mind, I got to be high as hell for this to be good.
Yeah.
And they're not sleeping. They're not doing any of that stuff.
It's always easy to look through the rear view mirror and say, oh yeah, these horrible things that happened, or you needed those in order to become the person that you are today. But of course they're true also. Like these traumatic experiences that create all that suffering are grist for transformation. And on some level, the universe is like, no, you don't get that, because like, you're fucked up, dude, and until you snap out of it and start, figuring yourself out, like, we're going to deprive you of these things because you're not ready for them. You're not prepared for them. I think the thing that gets lost, like we live in a town where there's a lot of inspirational stories of great artists who were sort of under the belief that like drugs and alcohol were required in order for them to like share their gift. They get sober and then their careers blossom, right? But as anybody who's like in these rooms knows, like, the only thing that, you are guaranteed for not drinking and using is to be sober. It's not like you do it to get these things, 100%. But you're provided with the opportunity to, become this more self-actualized person. And that puts you in a position to become available for a bigger and more beautiful life. Like you get the chance to chase your dream because of that, but you're not guaranteed the dream.
100%. I mean, like, I heard other people share their morning routines in those rooms, and I stole those morning routines from people. Like, I get up every day at 4 and I get on my knees, I make a prayer, I do my meditation, I journal, I read a new chapter of a book every day, I go to the gym and exercise, and then I work for an hour on my work, whatever that is, writing, and then I hit a meeting every single day. And that's all before 8:30 a.m. And all that stuff, I feel like is, again, the only way I'm allowed to do that is because I'm sober. And I think like when I put sobriety first, then the rest of the stuff, the cash and prizes don't come, but you can actually work hard and get the things, or get the things that you want, the dreams that you want. You go and chase them yourself with, sobriety on your back.
And then the challenge becomes when you get your dream, which you're getting right now. Like how do you maintain sobriety as your first priority and not suddenly become captured by all the kind of fancy things that are going to be dangled in front of your face now?
Well, I've got
stay grounded.
I got a lot of people that keep me humble.
Groundlings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got a lot of people that keep me humble. Like I've got a great core group of friends that like, just are there for me, and I also like I help out a lot of people by offering my time and sponsorship. And I personally love when I get a phone call from anyone because it gets me out of my own self and gets me out of like, why am I not going out for that? All the stuff that the industry that I'm in can take up my whole entire day and get me all crazy. Instead, find a way to be of service, and that can be with my partner, with everybody. But, another cool thing is like the movie had like all my family in it. So like they keep me grounded a lot too. And they're like, yeah, you're just from Baltimore. You're not anything that big, but
although I think their eyes were pretty wide open at South by Southwest.
Yes.
Oh, did they all come for the?
Yeah. Well, it was so funny. I'll do this quick story. My mom's sitting one seat over from me, and she's in the first 5 minutes of the movie. She plays Darlene, Brittany's mom, and she's watching, and she comes on screen, and she just goes, "Oh!" And she forgot she was in it.
She was in it, yeah.
And I was like, "Come on, Mom!" And then my dad came to another screening, and my dad and my stepmom were so sweet. They came to the Saturday one, and my dad is just in my ear going, "There's Marty. There's Allison. There's Chris." And I'm like, "Dad, this is not a private screening. You can't just be saying everybody that you're seeing on the screen." Like, and then it was just so cool because in all honesty, like this is what's going to keep like that whole day on Saturday. We got to do press and do all these things like that I've never done before. Take pictures and get to do all that. It was a blast. The coolest thing about doing that whole was having my family next to me and like watching this movie that we worked so hard on. Like seeing that was like, that's my dreams. Like my mom's finally seeing her son up there on the big screen, and like that keeps me here,
Except for your brother.
Yeah.
Who wasn't able to make it.
Yeah.
Which is another big piece in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. That was, that was a year into my sobriety. I had a year and 2 days, and I got a phone call from my dad, and my dad said, Zach is no longer among the living. And, like I didn't know what to do. So I called up my sponsor. He came over, he helped me book a flight. I went home, and like, I put my 1 year chip in the casket with Zach because he had time in the program too. And I just like showed up and be of service. How can I help people there? And it was brutal, like he was 33. It's like the same age as like, Farley and Belushi. And he really tried at this. And like, that's the thing is like, I don't understand why I get it and he doesn't. And, when I came back to LA, I went to my meeting, and I just like was the first hand up raised, and I just shared, I just went back to Baltimore. I just, had to bury my brother, and I went back to my seat, and the guy that had his arms wrapped around me was my friend Zach. And like, that's God to me. You know, that's Zach saying I'm okay up there or wherever he is, you know, is that, yeah, it's like, it's a messed up disease.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like it's been riddled in my family. Like my granddad died in an accident, a car accident, was drinking and driving, you know? But if I can stay sober, then if people that need it in my family, they have someone to call, you know, and I can change and it's not, and I don't want to have ego involved with like changing the narrative of a family, but like, I just love being sober so much that I, you know.
Well, you get to be a living example, and that's powerful in interrupting that kind of generational, you know, kind of continuation of this pattern. But there's real beauty and humility in not being like, oh, I got sober and I moved to Hollywood and now I'm doing my thing. Like the movie is a love letter to Baltimore and to like these people, like you real people are in it, people that you know.
Mostly
you know
real
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
My whole family.
Maybe because you didn't have to pay them, but
You know,
I
mean,
it gives it a real authenticity, you know, and I think there's a maturity and a humility in your performance because on some level, like as a comedian, like there is a flex, like you're going to do your thing and you've got like your bits and stuff like that. But you're never over your skis on it. Like it's never in a like, hey, look at me showy way. Like it's always very, you know, integrated and germane to, you know, character development and plot. And it just felt like a less mature performer given this opportunity would be like, you know, kind of, okay, I'm taking it all the way, you know? And there was that sense of like, this guy could probably, you know, push the accelerator on this and he's not doing that.
That's him.
Yeah. Or Jay's holding you back from that. He's saving you from that fate.
Well, he just kind of like, he gave me the best acting note I've ever gotten where it was just like, and it's he just said, you're enough. Like, you're great. Like, just stay in it.
Just be you. Just be real. I mean, that's the greatest compliment is that the comedy is germane to the story because, you know, what I've found over the years, at least for the kinds of movies that I make, is that if I can tell a real honest story and it's dramatic and people are behaving very naturally, the comedy that emanates from that, it lives in the heart. You know what I mean? It's not like brain comedy. I mean, because of course, like a gag is a gag and we'll always laugh. But like when the comedy lives in the heart, it just like resonates and it's additive over time. You know, it just builds over time when you love that person more and more. And I think it works both ways. I think comedy also opens hearts. So it's like a symbiotic relationship. But I mean, Michael trusted me and, he's inherently just funny. He's just funny to watch. It's funny to watch him do stuff. And that's what we really did is just created scenarios for him to operate in and for him to be desperate in those scenarios. Cause you know, you certainly in the first 6 months of sobriety have not shed your desperation yet. Yeah. And if anything, it's at a fever pitch because you don't have the alcohol to mask it. Obviously you're desperate when you're an alcoholic, but you know, so we were just trying to capture that. And, you know, that's a great compliment. I appreciate that.
We interrupt your programming with an important PSA. Happy gut, happy body, happy life. It's important, but to get there, you need a ritual. Mine starts right here with Seed DSO1. Because here's the thing about probiotics. Most of the products out there don't even survive your stomach acid, which is why I was intrigued by Seed because they have this capsule-in-capsule system, which is designed to safeguard 24 probiotic strains and actually deliver them all the way to the colon with precision where they can be released intact. Seed's DSO1 Daily Symbiotic is a 2-in-1, meaning both a probiotic and a prebiotic But DSO1 isn't just about your gut. It's about supporting your whole body, from your immune system to your energy levels. And since starting DSO1, I actually have noticed improved digestion and steady energy. If you care about your health, you care about your longevity, you got to start with your gut. So go to seed.com/richroll and use the code richroll25 for 25% off your first month of DSO1. This podcast is sponsored by Squarespace. I cannot tell you how frequently I meet people who have incredible ideas, valuable skills, things the world desperately needs, but they get stuck on the tech side of sharing it. There are a couple things these people are missing, which is that no matter how good your idea or offering may be, you still need to make people aware of it if you want anybody to care about it. And second, the tech side of it all is just no longer complex, thanks to Squarespace, which has created this hyper-intuitive, incredibly easy to use, all-in-one, frictionless solution to take that idea and present it to the world. And now they've got this thing called Blueprint AI, and you literally just tell it what you do, what you're about, and it builds you a custom website that actually reflects who you are. Whether you're offering coaching sessions, online courses, consultations, whatever, you can showcase it, schedule it, invoice for it, get paid for it. Because here's the truth, your ideas sitting in your head help nobody. But when you make it easy for people to find you and work with you, that changes everything. So head on over to squarespace.com/richroll for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use code richroll to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Jay, I really need to know what happened to your career as a running influencer and content creator, because there was a stretch there where you were like sharing your runs every day on Instagram.
Yeah.
And that seems to have precipitously dropped off.
Yeah, I was doing a daily run log. I mean, so first of all, my dad was a marathoner. I grew up under he was a marathoner in the late 70s in like the special American heyday of American distance running. I mean, now we're in a bigger heyday, but I was just obsessed with it. I ran in high school. I didn't run in college. I went to University of Texas, and it was kind of like one of the few schools that I couldn't run at, but yeah, I kind of came back to running. I mean, I've always run on and off my whole life, but I was trying to really make a comeback and run every day, and I drove my body into the ground, mainly just because as we were talking, I'm a workaholic, and, I don't have a lot of wiggle room in my life in general. Like there's just, being married, I got 2 kids, I have a partnership with my brother. I'm making a lot of movies. I'm mentoring other people to help them make movies.
You got dogs?
I got 2 dogs.
Yeah.
I just got really beat up, and our common friend Alexi Pappas has actually offered to like coach me, and I was like, I don't know if I can go there yet. You know what I mean? Because
it creates a little bit of a accountability, that you might not be able to live up to right now.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I could live up to it, but I do love it. It's like, it's kind of my church, I mean, right now it's just walking and jogging and, just trying to get out in nature as much as possible. But I did have a lot of people loving just seeing someone run every day. It was there's nothing super special about it, but I think there was something, accountability wise about it. It's just like you wake up and this one guy is going to run every day, which I did for about 6 months. And then I was like, honestly, my body just broke down, and I didn't have the wherewithal or the time or the energy to get the supports to move through it and to take care of myself as I did it, which is, that's what you need to do if you want to run every day.
Well, this is the dilemma for the ambitious, successful person, who wants to, do all things and is very capable in many ways. But, you strike me as somebody who overcommits themselves. Like when you look at your IMDb, like I thought I had a beat on like all your projects, and I was like, I haven't heard of 80% of these shows that you executive produce. Like it's insane.
Neither am I.
How many things you're involved with. So like you live inside a very crowded mind, I would imagine.
Yeah, it definitely, like my brother and I, we grew up in the suburbs of New Orleans, and we loved movies growing up. We were obsessed with everything coming, down the pipe of HBO. It was like a momentous day, the day that cable came to our neighborhood. We didn't know what it meant. We thought like literally a big cable was going to be laid across our lawns to bring all these wonderful television shows and movies in particular. But, you know, at that time when we were growing up, it was New Orleans. So we basically thought the only way to be an artist was to be like a 60-year-old blues black man, you know, touring Europe. We tried to do that. We failed at that. And then, you know, we went whole hog into movies. And honestly, it felt like, I guess, a little bit like immigrants to film culture because, you know, we weren't Coppola kids. We didn't know anybody who made movies. We had no idea how we would access it. We were just, you know, making movies on VHS in the 80s when we were kids. But we had this kind of lucky moment where I went to the University of Texas in 1991. And this is when Robert Rodriguez and Richard Linklater each had made a $20,000 feature film. And we didn't have $20,000, but that was an amount of money that we can like get our heads around. Like, oh, that seems doable one day. And Rick and Robert were also guys who were walking around Austin, Texas, wearing jeans and t-shirts and going to coffee shops and talking about movies. And so that's what kind of like birthed this idea that we could come into this world and like make films and maybe have a career doing it. But, you know, it still felt far away. So this is all just to say that we feel like we don't belong. I know you've had that journey too. It's just like, what am I doing here? We feel like we invented this thing that we're doing because we kind of were the first generation of like DV filmmakers who, you know, our first feature film, The Puffy Chair, was $10,000. I mean, it was like shot digitally and literally was the story of our lives in that moment, very Sean Baker style in that moment, which is like, this is all the money we have, and this is the only story we have to offer, you know, which is just like our pathetic desperation around wanting to be successful and what it means to be in a relationship in your 20s, which is what that film was about. So, yeah, I've spent a lot of time putting my head down and just like not allowing myself to really come up for air. And now that I'm 50, I'm like, okay, how can I turn off that impulse, you know, that desperate instinct to just create and to be successful? Because volume was a big part. Like you were saying, volume was a big part of us finding our way because we wanted to be the Coen brothers. I mean, that's what everybody wanted to be in the early 90s coming up as filmmakers. We failed at that. They're very good at what they do, by the way. Like, don't try to be the Coen brothers, you know? So it just took us a long time to figure out our style and what we uniquely had to offer. And I'm 52 now, and I'm still having a really hard time turning off that desperate impulse to just continuously make things. And, you know, I mean, this year has been amazing. I've acted in a bunch of stuff, but literally 4 months ago, I had no prospects for any work whatsoever. I had no jobs.
That's hard to believe.
Truly. I had no offers, at least. I mean, there's always possibilities, and I can create stuff for myself, but I had no offers. So, I mean, I was talking to Michael about it like 4 months ago. I was like,
you're going to be fine, bud. Don't worry.
But I had no way, I had no guarantee to make money. So that's kind of what I'm struggling with right now.
A story that works. Like, how do you figure that out? You know, how do you know when the story is working, when it is heartfelt and all of those things? Like, this is like a very difficult art form that I think people fail to fully appreciate.
That's nice. I agree with you, and I think that there is a sort of like misperception, and that's why there's so much challenge in Hollywood, is that, you know, because we all watch movies, we can make movies, but it is an incredibly complex art form, and very specifically what you're saying, like the plot of a movie that's actually going to work, and that part of that is a lot of experience and a lot of failure on my part in making movies that, like had some fun things and some great scenes and they were funny and stuff. But in the end, it didn't like get you there. It didn't really deliver something that made you look at life in a whole new way. I mean, it's an incredibly tall order. And that's where I spend most of my time, is just conceiving a movie, conceiving like, what is the structure of a movie? What is the scaffolding that's going to build, that's going to pay off when you get there? And then the rest of it is like sobriety. It is constant vigilance and nudges and creating positivity and, jumping off of cliffs when you don't know if there's going to be warm water down there. It might be jagged rocks and like you guys are saying, like being an exemplar for everybody else as a director. I think one of the best things that you can do is just like shore yourself up with confidence in the morning. Not the kind of confidence that's like fake or whatever, but just like, I believe in this movie. I believe in what we're doing. And when you believe in what you're doing and you go forth with love, it creates itself, So it really is, especially on a tiny movie where, you're just kind of wandering around Baltimore and you're parking a white van.
Were you running and gunning, or did you have permits and stuff like that? I mean, there were scenes where cars are driving and there's no other cars around, so
no
I assume
control
that you
whatsoever.
now the amazing down or something. No,
I mean that's one of the no shutting streets. Nothing was shut down. We have a scene that was filmed on what's called 34th Street in Baltimore, which is a Christmas tree avenue where all these houses light their houses up and people are just walking around. And we just shot there, and we did dialogue replacement. We did all kinds of stuff. But the amazing thing about Baltimore is that a permit to shoot on the street for a month is $65. $45.
Yeah, $45.
And I told Mark and my producers back in LA, and they were like, $45 a day is incredible. I'm like, 45 total. 45 total for the entire month. So as long as you are not in a street, so it's a very friendly place to shoot a movie. And that was a big part of it too, is just like being out of LA, which, people are talking about it a lot right now. LA has become very bloated. It's become very expensive. The permits are expensive. If you want to shoot in a drugstore in LA, it costs like $30,000 because everyone's savvy and, so many big things have shot here. So, part of the movie was also just going to Baltimore so that we could have summer camp and make a movie together on the down low. But I mean, for sure, we were in some questionable neighborhoods at 3 a.m. and, I mean, crazy. We did some crazy things.
Yeah.
We had to get a Cadillac from a trailer park where there was.
And I was like, I'm gonna get J. Duplass killed right here.
There were
it's sort of the meta story to the kind of after hours aspect of this movie. Like there is a sort of it all takes place like there's this weird adventure at night and all different. They're encountering all different kinds of people.
Yes.
And,
Well, and like even like the house at the end of the movie, we had to get like another black door. Like that matched, well, I don't want to give anything away, but just had to match doors. And I look over at this woman kind of coming out of the door, and I look at her door. I was like, okay, that's a black door. And I was like, AJ, I'm going to ask this woman if we can use her house for the end shot. And went over and I was like, hey, we're shooting a movie down there. Like, is there any way we could use your front door and to be the exterior? She was like, yeah, I'm just hanging out all day. Love to help out. So like the end of the movie was just like,
it would never happen in LA.
No.
She was like rearranging plants on people's stoops for us. She was
she hung out with Liz like the whole afternoon.
Yeah, like our lead actress was like,
didn't they got each other's number?
It was freezing cold, so she was able to. We used her bathroom. I mean, it was just the whole shoot was an all-night adventure in Baltimore, just like the movie is. It was like, art. Our life mimicking art, actually, it was like a weird cycle.
And people saying, I mean, that sounds corny, but people saying like, yes, and how can I help? And, like that's what I feel like I learned so much about producing from Jay was just like, just call, see what they say. The worst thing anyone's going to say is no. So you might as well just take a shot. And, that
took a lot of shots.
We took a lot of shots.
You mentioned that for you, Baltimore is much more hairspray than The Wire. I mean, John Waters is the ambassador of Baltimore.
He's the
king. There's no contest here. And he went to a screening. Yeah,
he was in P-Town.
Had you met him before?
First time ever. He's met my niece because my mom used to work at the Store Limited, which is a old store in Baltimore that shut down this year. But he took a picture with my niece at 6 months old. So we have a picture of John with the baby, and then now me and John. But, you know, he would come into the store a lot. And when I first went out to LA, my mom was
Does
like...
he like dress up just when he's like walking around?
Yeah, I want to know what he's wearing on a Tuesday.
Like, what is a day in the life?
I mean, very similar, like this jacket probably, like something like this, like cozy.
He's not wearing an ascot and like a purple kimono.
He does. He did get a scarf for his mom like every year for Christmas there. Like that's
really
that's
sweet.
what he would always do.
Okay.
But my mom, being my mom, she was like, you know, my son just moved out to Los Angeles. Do you have any advice for him? He wants to be an actor. And he goes, yeah, tell him to get another hobby.
Did you tell him that story when you met him?
And then he went, I don't know if I said that. And I was like, great. You did. My mom would not. Yeah. But yeah, he was like,
those are the moments, man.
Well, and he came to the screening and he sat during the Q&A and everything, and he asked a question during the Q&A, which was like so cool. He was like, how did you film on 34th Street? I've been wanting to shoot there forever. How'd you do it?
The technical question.
Yeah. The technical question,
And I was like, we had a permit that we could shoot on the street, and it was all good. And he was like, oh man, I wish I thought of that. And then he asked about the Key Bridge, because the Key Bridge is in it, and that's
the bridge that came down a few months after we shot it.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's wild. Wow. That we have a sort of iconic. It's sort of our Manhattan Bridge or a Brooklyn Bridge shot as an ode to Baltimore, which is the Key Bridge, which you insisted on getting, even though it was 18 degrees in the middle of the night.
And I was like, let's get it.
We got to get this shot.
And it's the most, I mean, it's one of my favorite shots of the movie because it just looks so beautiful, and it's Christmas Eve night, and it's just like stunning. And he was like, how early on before, like, how many months ago did you shoot that before it fell? And I was like, 2 months in December. And he was like, you know, the Wall Street Journal called me asking for comment when the bridge fell. And I was like, what do you want me to say? I've driven on it. I was like, that's great. But yeah, it's like, it's the coolest thing to like have somebody that's a legend of mine growing up and seeing all his movies, and like him coming to a screening of Baltimoreans was like,
yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah. Next level.
What are some of your, storytelling or filmmaking rules, you know, that might be, you know, interesting for the average person who's just a movie watcher, you know, when it comes to like, because I asked you about like what makes a great story, or how do you know when you have a great story?
I mean, my first rule is make movies, not meetings. All the kids that come to me and they want to pick my brain, they're like, how do you get it done? And I'm like, you make movies. And their fear is that they're not ready and that they're going to be bad. And my answer is always, yes, they are. They're going to be bad. And, you know, to dispel the myth that someone wakes up in the morning, they go to the bathroom, and either a great movie comes out or a bad movie comes out. You know, I think it is still relatively a new art form. So for instance, you know, if you had friends who went to art school and were painters in college, like, there's not a painter in the world that would expect to sell a painting until they've done at least 500. You know what I mean? Or at least for like a decent amount of money. Maybe your friend will be nice to you and give you $50. You know what I mean? But that's a given that as a painter, you're going to paint 500 paintings before you're actually going to be up in a gallery and people are going to buy your paintings for thousands of dollars, for instance. So, you know, I try to tell people just make bad art. Make a lot of bad art. I thought I was going to be the Coen brothers. I thought that's what I wanted to be. It turns out stylistically, I'm the total opposite. I shoot in a documentary style. I work with no control. I'm out in the street in Baltimore trying not to get shot while I'm like running down the street filming this man, you know? And that I had to be hit over the head with that. I had to, you know, my sort of origin story for finding out what I uniquely had to offer the world was when I was ready to quit, and my brother was like, we're shooting something today. And we got a tiny video camera and we shot this short film about him trying to perfect the personal greeting of his answering machine and failed to do so and had a nervous breakdown because that's what happened to me the week before.
For people who aren't intimately familiar with your career, though, what gets missed in that is the fact that you didn't become the Coen brothers. You know, like you're of the generation, there's the Soderbergh, there are these like rock star directors, right? And like the aspiring director is like someday, and you're when you don't know what your thing is or your style is yet, you're going to, of course, like copy the people who inspire you. But by just like, hey, we're shooting today, no matter what, you guys are responsible in large part for actually creating an entire new genre called Mumblecore. Like, I don't know what your relationship or feelings are about that now, but the Coen brothers can't say that.
Yeah, it is odd that we are the godfathers of a filmmaking movement that we didn't make up ourselves. But
anybody who would create a genre or a movement didn't do so because they were trying to. It was authentic, like sort of outgrowth of whatever it was they were just doing.
Like the press and film professors essentially decide what happened. But yeah, we were at the very early stages of the first time digital video became good enough to look at to where you could actually broadcast it, and you could actually transfer it to film and it would look decent. So we were, honestly, it can be, and that's a testament to just staying the course. But like the moment we made our first decent film was the same time that they came out with this camera called the Panasonic AG-DVX 100. I still know it to this day, even though that number is ridiculous because it was a revolution for myself and for so many other people. And oddly enough, we premiered the Puffy chair at Sundance, but it was oddly enough at South by Southwest that 4 or 5 other filmmakers, just like Mark and me, were there with movies shot on that very same camera. And there were movies that were very specifically about our lives and the stories that we had to offer. No one was there with a movie that cost more than $20,000. And the press got a hold of it, and they were like, something is happening. Something is clearly happening here. And, at the time, it felt weird because we were just trying to make a movie that didn't suck, frankly. That's what we were trying to do. But it was incredible at the time because we got written up in the New York Times as part of a movement, and we were being called the godfathers of the movement because our movie had a lot of legs to it. And that was odd. And now and we're in a lot of textbooks. I have a lot of professors calling and they want to interview us because they're writing something, strictly academic, and they want to talk to us about it. So it's very cool. It's very dreamy. But what's wild about it is like, I wanted to be the Coen brothers, but I also love John Cassavetes, and I always I just thought it'd be so cool to be like iconic, but as I'm in it, I don't feel that way. I'm still just trying to make a movie that doesn't suck.
They would say the same, I'm sure.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. Because even the greats, the Coen brothers have some questionable films out there, and it is such a tough form. I know, how dare me, I know. But it is such a difficult form. And I think, you got to have beginner's mindset. You have to have it because no matter what movie you're making, you're this close to making a movie that doesn't work. Everything has to really come together for something to be beautiful and transcendent and funny and heartfelt and all the things that you want a movie to be.
Has there ever been a movie or a show that you've been involved in or that you were making where there wasn't a moment where you were like, this is a fucking disaster. Like, this is never going to work? Or that first cut or whatever where you're like,
there's never been a moment.
This is never going to come together.
It always comes at some point where you're like, oh no, this is maybe not going to work. We had that moment with the Baltimoreans, our critical scene, which is filmed at a comedy club where Michael and Liz, our 2 leads, go up on stage and essentially flop and have to figure out how to work their way out of a bad sketch, essentially. That scene, we filmed it. It was our toughest scene. We spent 2 days and 2 nights filming that scene, and it didn't work. It did not work. And it wasn't a disaster. Like, I would say it made the movie a B. And Michael and I were like, we want an A+. We will not, And so we went back to Baltimore in the middle of the summer to refilm that scene, but it took us months to reconceive it and to figure out what that scene really needed to be. It's really the linchpin of the whole movie.
And what was the unlock? Like, what was the shift that you realized would make it work?
The unlock, which is a little inside baseball, but when you see the film, you'll know, was ultimately that, like, you learn about these movies, tell you what they need as you go along, and the more you can respond, the better. But what we learned is that, Michael's character helped Liz through the most challenging thing she could imagine doing, which was to go to her ex-husband's house during Christmas and face everyone so that she could be with her daughter and her granddaughter. And it's just something that was unimaginable to her. And we realized that scene for Michael was the moment where Liz would be there for him, and that them just yes-anding each other and staying on stage, which, during this movie, going back on stage is the thing that he feels like he can't do. That's over. That part of his life is over. So she helps him rediscover ultimately that he can be funny sober, and then when it's over, he realizes that it's actually better than it's ever been. So, there were some widgets in that scene that were really challenging in terms of, like, originally he was funny in the scene, but what we realized is that he had to fail and that she needed to just show up for him and the way he showed up for her. So that was a tough reshoot. It was like 100 degrees in that room in the summer.
I had to cut all my high school buddies that were in the last scene.
It definitely works, but the movie pivots on that. Like he's gotta be the guy. Unless he crushes that scene, she's not on board for the whole other part of the movie that follows.
100%. Yeah. And it really
had to build more.
And I'm very confident that we would not have won the audience award at South by Southwest if we had not reshot that tough thing. And it was our most expensive scene. We had 30 or 40 extras. I know it sounds tiny, but it's a lot, and we did pay. I mean, we paid everyone minimally, but we did pay everybody our SAG minimums just because, we want to be, above board. We can't do what we did on Puffy Chair, where you just...
Your parents were in it and they...
Well, we still did your parents in it, but we did pay them.
Yes, exactly.
If you were making Puffy Chair today, or you were, where you were at, prior to making that movie, but, it's today, like, you guys become YouTubers.
Oh yeah, we're YouTubers.
Like, you're like, like you would just be making stuff all the time. Like this is the ethos. Like, you're just making stuff all the time. Yeah. Like, moving forward. Like, it would have been, immediately obvious that, like, YouTube was going to be the place where you were going to tell your story.
100%. It would be YouTube. And in fact, our agents at CAA have recommended many, many times that we start a YouTube channel. I
would watch whatever you guys.
That's really nice. I mean, maybe that will happen one day. But I think the tricky part too is that if you create a YouTube channel and you run a YouTube channel, you become the manager of a television channel or a web channel. Yeah, exactly. You become.
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing,
yeah. and if you're going to do it.
Absolutely. And the thing that I think I've realized more than anything about my life is that my childhood dream of being a writer-director has never changed. I've flexed and I've accidentally become an actor, and I've had to produce my movies and so that they could be made the way that I need them to be made. And then, of course, like, I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of up-and-coming young people and all kinds of different voices and help them do their thing. But I think in, like, the sort of, like, back nine of my career, I'm realizing this is what I really want to do, is write and direct films. And so just I want to put all my creative energy into that, because that, giving everything you've got in that is, there's still no guarantee that you can keep going.
Sure. Michael, I'm curious about your perspective on this. We're in this weird era right now where, movies and television are up in the air. Movies are dead. People aren't going to the theaters. And yet when you turn on your smart TV, it's just like, you just can't believe how much choice you have. Like, and people are saying like, oh, like there's no jobs, everyone's out of work in LA. And then you're like, yeah, but who's making the 7,000 shows that, seem to premiere every week across all of these platforms? So it's a bizarre time, like, the economic model, behind all of this, the engine is very much, in transition. But because the gatekeepers have been completely removed, at least, on platforms like YouTube, you have an entire generation of young people who are just making stuff all the time, and they're learning intuitively how to tell a good story or what works or what doesn't. And like, you're making these short videos on, your social media and all of that, which you have to imagine is going to create a lot of really talented creators who will eventually go on to make feature films or, series television or whatever. We're already seeing some people do that. Who are those Australian brothers?
Talk to me, directors.
Those guys, like
who just did
they're
one,
like the hot new thing. They have that. Don't they have a movie coming out soon?
It was out in June.
Oh no,
it's with what's her face?
I know,
God.
I know what you're talking about. I haven't seen the movie yet.
It was great. It was
and
scary.
Ava Victor, who has Sorry Baby, it's the big hit out of Sundance this year. She got a A24 release, and she originally was an Instagram influencer who turns out is an incredible filmmaker.
Yeah, but
what we haven't seen is what your agent suggested that you guys do. Like, see, like legitimate veteran filmmakers, directors. Who have been in Hollywood forever, go to YouTube and make some interesting, cool stuff.
We've done it on a less extreme scale because our fourth and fifth movies were Hollywood movies. They were Fox Searchlight and Paramount movies. They were $7.5 and $10 million respectively, and at that point in time we realized, man. We actually enjoy making the little ones better, and they make us just as much money because we own them. We don't, of course, they're big risks, but, so we kind of like receded from like that Hollywood pathway. The idea is like you go to Sundance with a couple of films and then you start working with Searchlight and then you move up to Focus. You know what I mean? It's like a very, very clear path of what a lot of people did. But not really a lot, like, 25 people, because it's a very narrow corridor.
Now it's just a pipeline to Marvel or DC.
That's absolutely what it was. And my brother and I definitely got offered some really big, crazy stuff that we turned down because we realized, we were courted by Marvel. We were courted by like the Fokker franchise. We were courted by, we were offered The Dictator to direct. There were a lot of people who were very interested in us, not only because we did good dramatic comedy, but we were known as like really good guys who could work with challenging people if need be, because that's a huge part of those franchises. It's a very underrated skill, and nobody thinks about it, but you get in Hollywood and you start hearing about it real fast. And, and you feel it, like a lot of these big comedies, for instance, are not about making the best movie. You have a franchise, and your job is not that. Of course, they want it to be as funny and as heartfelt as it can be, but your job is actually moving a movie from A to Z over the course of 3 years without anybody murdering anybody else. You know what I mean? And there are a lot of directors that are known for their murder. And their personality management, and that was really tough for Mark and me because, big studios didn't really want to make exactly what we wanted to make at a higher budget. They wanted to suck us up into their world and use our skills to like essentially get their franchises made, without murder. And ultimately we turned away from that because we just did not, we just wanted to make original art, and we had suffered so much and come so far. We were like, let's go back to our little, pond that we swim in.
It's pretty rare that a director could step into that and maintain a a singular vision. Like, Ryan Coogler can do it, Christopher Nolan did it, but there's a lot of people who kind of got chewed up in that whole thing. But like the money is giant. It's like, I read something your brother had said, I think it was in a Variety article. It was like, Jay could get offered, $500,000 to be an actor in X. But if this other project that's going to pay him $150 is just 10% better, he'll do that every time. And that's like, like, how do you prevent yourself from making those compromises? Especially, it's like, it's expensive to live. You've got kids and all of it.
It's kids
like,
in LA.
And even like the greatest artists, they'll go out and do the one so that they can like put their kids through college or buy their beach house or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, keeping my expenses low, I don't buy stuff. I just don't buy stuff. I just want to make stuff. I think having an aesthetic mentality, which I had to have for my, first 10 years of my career. I came up in Austin, Texas, making $15,000 a year because that was what I needed to make to keep doing my thing. But it's also just my temperament. Like I want to be a part of beautiful, transcendent art. And I have learned that, what you do begets what you get. If you are a part of something incredible, people look to that and they will hire you on something beautiful, going forward. So I don't know. I mean, it's just like I'm an art Nazi too. I mean, all I want to do is make art, and I want it to be as great as it can be. And, it is challenging at times. And, we live on the East Side and we keep our expenses low. And I mean, that's been an interesting part of it too, because people think that I have way more money than I have because they look at like the IMDb situation. And I'm like, no, my wealth is in the quality of the stuff that I get to make, and I do make a good living and I feel good about it.
At least 5 figures.
I mean, but for real, like, what happens in Hollywood is you make a lot of money and people start fishing around if they could maybe sue you. That happens sometimes too. Like, I can't mention things that have happened, but people have sniffed around and figured out how much money we actually have, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?"
This is your litigation avoidance.
Litigate.
This is why.
It's a little PSA: stay away. There's nothing to get. I mean, but it is a part of the philosophy of just like I'm just here to make great art, and that's what allowed me to survive too, is just like doing the volume and just making great stuff.
How do you balance having a singular artistic vision with the fact that it is a collaborative medium? And also a medium in which it's important to take feedback from the right people. I mean, this is like an A thing. Like you run your decisions by other people, before you make them, especially when you're early sobriety. And
they're like, you should get engaged. And I was like, okay, I can do it.
Early and often that like maybe your idea isn't the best idea. Jay doesn't suffer from that problem, but there is a balance between like, this is my vision and this is what I'm doing. And the fact that there's a lot of other people involved, and sometimes feedback makes the project better. And in this case, the story was a collaborative work between the two of you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the most collaborative person I think I've ever worked with. Like, truly, this man has no ego. And it's like the craziest thing is like, or just an ego that I don't see. Like there were no bad ideas. Like he was like, yeah, let's throw that in. And like, and after several drafts of writing, some of that stuff left, and then, but like, he really does make it ours coming together first, and then it's the cast and crew that, before every single day we get, this is what I'd never done this, but Jay sets up like a lineup where everyone's like, he just is like, anybody want to say anything to start it off?
We do a prayer circle.
Yeah. Just to get the day going. And it's
it's also because, I do that because making a movie feels like war, and you're trying to like put laughs and heartbreak into a war zone. It can't survive, so I try to create, just socially a world where everybody is welcome, and everybody, if somebody comes to work and their dog died that day, let's hear it, because that's part of a culture that I really learned with the Transparent, the television show that I was on. But yeah, I mean, wait, what were we talking about?
Well, just collaborating and like
collaborating,
and like having a vision.
Yeah.
Having a vision. I mean, look, I think this is how I really feel about it is the best movies are made by dictators who are very benign and who include everybody else in the process. And, we talked about it earlier. I do believe in serving my audience, and in particular with this story, I believe in serving Michael's story. So the way that I think about it, and maybe this is like tip number 2 for up and coming filmmakers is, when you start a movie, that movie is 100% yours, or in this case, it's Michael's and mine. It's his story that I'm telling and we're telling together, and it is 100% ours. And then every step of the way, it becomes a little bit less. We hire a DP, we hire a producer, and their feedback comes in, and we include that, and it belongs to them now. And then over time,
we have a test screening.
You have a test screening down here, and now it's, smart people are coming in and telling us what's working, what's not working. And at the very end, the movie no longer belongs to us. And if you have done your job right as a director, it belongs 100% to the audience. So I think the process of making the film is learning how to land this plane in the hearts and minds of audience members, because we've already done our thing. You know what I mean? It's just like we've already hugged and cried and laughed and high-fived and almost got shot in Baltimore. You know what I mean? And then by the end, if it doesn't belong 100% to a stranger in a dark room that you will never have a conversation with, you're not really doing your job. And I think I had, the beginning of my career, I was co-directing with my brother. So we didn't have that authorship. It was already, we were in receiving mode, and that's what you see something, you know how you feel about it, but you got to talk to somebody else about it too. And that really helped train me. And so when I get on set, it's less about, this is how I wanted it. I want it to be exactly that way. You're not doing what I want. It's more about sitting back as an audience member. And, sometimes it's really comfortable. You have a comfy video village and there's a tent around you. But sometimes you're just standing on a street in Baltimore and there's questionable activity going on in the street nearby you. And you have a monitor this big, and you have to really get in your mind and be like, I'm in a movie theater in Pasadena in 2 years. How is this affecting me? And, that's what I let lead me, is like, I guess, like being possessed by the audience that will come. That's the communication. That's what we all forget, is this is a communication between Michael and me and strangers in a room that are 2 or 3 years away.
Yeah.
And that is a weird, long-winded thing to do, but the more that you just keep that in mind.
And you're the first audience watching it on that monitor.
I'm the first audience, yeah.
And if you're not entertained,
if I'm not entertained,
we're going to go again.
We got to change it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about that that's curious, though, because this sort of openness that you have to have, this kind of expansive, relationship with the thing, and being able to, kind of imagine what it's going to look like down the road. How does that match up with, like, I think maybe you're kind of prone to obsessiveness. Like, you have obsessions, right?
Yeah,
like, nobody is doing all these different things unless they like get obsessed with something and just like, so
it's way
but
too
those
hard.
are two different energies, right?
They are.
Like, the obsessiveness could make you that dictatorial kind of director.
Yeah, it's creator, destroyer, yin yang is what it is. And so similar to it belongs to us and now it belongs to the audience, early is creator, end is destroyer. So in the early days, it's yes and. Michael, tell me about this. How did that feel? Why did the belt break?
Wait.
Holiday wait.
Yes.
There's a mix along the way, constantly creating, constantly destroying, and in the destruction is, there has to be a ton of love in the destruction. And, but yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were plenty of times where I was like, we're going to redo this whole thing. On our first day of shooting, I was like, we're lopping off the first 10 pages of the script. How did that feel when I did that?
I had to take a nap.
Yeah. Very overwhelming, right?
Yeah. I was like, and then now looking back on it, Like that scene, we were trying to do something that didn't need to happen, and that also we can see later on.
Yeah.
We can, but yeah, I was like, how are we going to do it? Like we're going to start with that. Okay.
It's traumatic.
Yeah.
The whole process is traumatic. I mean, Mark and I, because we failed so much and because we put movies up that didn't work, I got trained early on as just like, by any means necessary. This isn't about me. Here's the thing. The whole mechanism of filmmaking, everyone wants you to say, we got it and we can move on, right? That's what everybody wants. That's what the producers want. That's what the assistant director who runs the set wants. They just want you to say that. And if you don't say that, everyone is in pain, because as fun as making a movie is, it's probably 3 a.m. People are underslept. People are having a tough time.
Who have never done this before, and they're like, I thought it was going to be 2 hours. What the hell is this?
Yeah, why am I here?
Yeah.
You're having personal conversations with extras to convince them to stay. And what Mark and I realized early on is like, you do not leave until you get it. And if you have to leave when you didn't get it, you're coming back. You're coming back. So there is a lot of constant
pressure to compromise.
Constant pressure.
Yeah.
That's what people are always like, how do you not compromise? And I'm like, you
are compromising. Every decision is a compromise.
Every decision is a compromise. That is 100% correct. And, but ultimately, it's all about nudges and fighting for the best you can get in that moment. Sometimes an actor shows up on set and they're supposed to be super peppy and hosting a party, and they are grumpy as hell. They haven't slept.
I thought you were not going to tell this story.
That's not about you. And sometimes you have to re-rig a scene to work with what somebody has to offer. And you also have to make sure that it works in the context of the story that you're telling. So it is a tireless job. It is, it's a 16-hour-a-day job for sure. And that's if you're lucky,
So when you see a clip of an actor losing his shit on the set, it's like important to, remember that and contextualize that.
100%.
I'm thinking of, and there's that great clip of David Lynch. Have you seen that where somebody's like, we got to move on.
Time.
Who gives a shit about time?
Who gives a shit about time?
Like, I don't care how long a scene is. Yeah. It's going to be as long as it's supposed to be. And he's like screaming.
Truly. Well, and I think I don't think, actors sometimes we're using all of our emotions, so we might not be in the best mood, because we have to do this one thing, that's kind of taking that mood from you.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is I love actors and whatever they need to do besides abusing other people that gets them to where they need to be, I support it and I love them and I help them along. I mean, 100% when I hear an actor losing their mind on set, I've experienced it myself as an actor where your body, if you get yourself in a position where, somebody's trying to kill you on set, which happens all the time, your body doesn't know the difference. Your body feels like somebody's trying to kill you. And just because somebody said cut and you have 2 minutes to walk over to craft services and get yourself a bagel doesn't mean that you've shed the feeling that somebody's trying to kill you right over there. And they're right over there. That's, it's real. It's very, very real. And in general, I mean, I feel like part of what this movie is about and part of what making art is about and part of what you're trying to create in the world is understanding and compassion for whoever is going through whatever they're going through, because everybody's out here doing their best, and in particular with filmmaking, it's unbelievably challenging. It's unbelievably
shocking
challenging.
That anything gets made at all.
It's
and then when something's good.
Yeah. When people come onto a set, Michael's family, when they came onto the set, they were like, I can't believe you guys are out here doing this. Y'all been out here for 3 weeks in the middle of the night, trouncing around Baltimore at 4 a.m. How are you standing? And we're like, because we're idiots and we love what we're doing. Yeah. But it is astounding.
My dad came on set at, I think his call time was 11:30 at night. He's like, you need me there that late? What are you going to be doing in Baltimore City that late at night? And I was like, we're shooting a movie, Dad. And then he comes and he did a great job,
Yeah.
And I mean, literally every single one of my family members are in this movie.
So funny.
Yeah.
There's a difference between improv, yes-anding people, and like, you know, pathos and dramatic acting. Like, did you study that also? Like this, I mean, you've done a bunch of TV and stuff like that, but this is
the first time I've done something that was like full on, like getting to do so many different things. Like, I love doing comedy. It's so much fun. But like, you know, my favorite actor is like Philip Seymour Hoffman, and he could be a killer in Along Came Polly and make you laugh so hard throughout it, and be one of the best actors of all time. Like, and so getting an opportunity to like have scenes in this movie that are, you know, emotional and dramatic, like that's what I love doing. Like I went to University of Maryland and studied theater there, which is me and Larry David came out of there.
that's pretty good though.
Yeah. And Kermit the Frog, Jim Henson.
All right.
But yeah, like I think, and also like with Sobriety, like that shifted a little bit where like, oh, I don't always have to be the funniest guy in the room. I can just be like I can show up and be the best listener and be in like, you know, the best actor I can be and serve the scene, you know, same way.
I didn't know whether he could be dramatic or not.
Yeah.
I
mean, you had to be wondering.
I had a total leap of faith.
Yeah.
It was a total leap of faith. I just got to know Michael and I was like, he has it. I mean, you know, we'd get together and tell stories and cry, and he was emotionally available. And yeah, your sobriety was a huge part of it. We never would have made this movie if you weren't sober. It would have been a different story. But also, like, I wouldn't have hired an unknown, unsober person to, you know, who was having trouble to put at the front of my movie. But similarly with Liz Larson, our lead actress, you know, that was on blind faith. You know, I met with her, hadn't worked with her.
I'd never seen her in anything before.
She's a musical theater person. She was starring in Transparent, the musical, and she was stunning and outrageous. And I was like, I don't know, I've never seen you before. I'm going to work with you. And she was like, that sounds funny. And then I called her and we met, and she told me her story, which is a big part of the film. And I called Michael after. I said, she's it. We're doing it. And we didn't do any chemistry read or anything. I just like, you know, you're just taking the temperature of how people are and what they are like. And I mean, it's probably... You probably have a similar feeling when someone's coming on your podcast. You know when it's going to be wonderful, and I had that feeling about both of them.
Yeah, and getting to work with Liz is like, it made dramatic acting so like dramatic acting, but like that easy, because like you just connect with her, and it's like you're just lost in the moment, like you're just there. And same with Olivia, like, you know, truly like. We got so lucky with
Olivia plays your fiance.
Yeah. Shia Lucardi.
Yeah. And then
there's some good moments with her.
Yeah,
like it's pretty funny when she unleashes on you.
Oh my God,
she's a killer, man.
She goes full in. And then my actual fiance is my love interest daughter. So
oh wow.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And that was such a fun scene doing that with Brian Mendez and MCAT and Jess and my niece Zoe. So Zoe's the little girl in it. And like, if we don't have everybody being solid actors in that, like, you know,
falls apart.
It would have been a disaster. And that scene's one of my favorites. Like, you know, and it's all because of, I mean, Brian got hired the day before he came down, and he just did such an amazing job. Like, he's Conway, you know, and we keep that wide shot in with the camo pants, because like that's Baltimore camo.
Is a man wearing camo pants and a camo shirt in Ravens camo colors.
I mean, that's an all-time costume that guy's got on. Jay, I mean, you've had your own journey with acting. I mean, for many years you were the guy behind the camera.
Yeah.
And then I would, you know, see you here and there. I mean, I watched Transparent, some of it, but I didn't watch like all of it. And I told you as much, like you really leapt off the screen in industry. Like that character was unreal, dude.
Thank you.
I mean, I've seen a lot of, you know, hedge fund types or whatever in television shows. And I love that show Industry, but you did something like all your own with that character that made it pretty unique and indelible.
Thank you. Yeah, that, I started acting when I was 40 years old. It happened because my friends who were directors, if someone dropped out, they would often hire me. They were like, look, we need a guy to come, Jay's comfortable on set. Set, as I was saying, is a traumatic place to be. It's very few people who can really be fully comfortable on set. And I'm not totally comfortable, but I've just been on so many that, you can really just relax into it. And, I would come and do a day player role and I wouldn't try to upsell my role. A lot of day players will come on and be like, what if I said this monologue in addition to saying, what would you like to eat, sir?
They're definitely going to bring me back.
Yeah, I think they're bringing me back. So I just started on accident and eventually it just leveled up. And during COVID, I got to go to Wales and shoot Industry, which is, this BBC HBO show. And they offered me the role and it was a very unusual role for me to play like a killer, hedge fund guy. But speaking of Transparent, Transparent was Amazon's first show, and we thought we were making a web show on the place where you buy your toilet paper at the time. And 6 months later, I was at the Golden Globes sitting next to Jeff Bezos, who runs Amazon, and I got to know him. And I sort of modeled the character on him a little bit. And it was interesting because I was able to bring a lot to it for, these Brits, people who come with a lot of money, don't have to be nice in England as much as in the United States because, money is real old in England. And, but yeah, I was able to sort of bring this sort of scrappy killer vibe to that character. And it was kind of a big break in my career. It definitely showed people, because prior to that people were casting me for me. I was you
could be in some version of a movie that you would make, and it's very familiar. But the Industry role was like an extreme departure from that.
Yeah, I had to. I mean, it was the toughest role I'd ever taken. I mean, that language. It's almost like learning another language when you're speaking hedge fund talk, because the creators had come from that world. It was very inside baseball, and so you had to know the dialogue so well that you could actually sort of intimate the emotional value of what was happening, because it's even as a viewer, it's hard to keep track of exactly what's happening. It's only because the actors on that show are so good that you can understand it. So that was a pretty wild show, and definitely broke my career open as an actor.
What did you learn from hanging out with Jeff Bezos? What can you share about?
Just a down-to-earth guy.
How that, what that hang was like.
That hang was like, it was an odd experience because everybody. So early days of Transparent, you're talking about 12 people at a table at the Golden Globes, at the Emmys, at the Peabodys, none of whom had ever been there before. So we're all just showing up, including Jeff Bezos, showing up, trying to figure out what this is and what this means. Very friendly guy, very excited about what we were doing. It was a huge windfall for them to have their first show do incredibly well. The main thing that I remember is he would show up and disappear through odd doors, and we were told that there were helicopters involved. So even at these events,
right.
Brad Pitt's at the Golden Globes, guys, and Bezos is going in and out.
Yeah,
he has the special treatment because
you're a nation at that point.
Yeah.
Yes. There's a lot of bodyguards. There's a lot of security. It is the operation is the only thing that I can liken it to is one of my good friends is grandson of Jimmy Carter, and when he got married, Jimmy Carter came to the wedding, and the wedding was a little bit about my friend John's wedding and mostly about how to get Jimmy Carter in and out of a wedding.
Yeah.
And, it's a really wild operation to see. The Golden Globes is a wild operation, and obviously a target, they're checking under cars with mirrors and wands that can detect things. So just that operation is huge. And then getting Jeff Bezos into it is totally insane. And then he's just sitting, eating cold food like we are and snacking and just like wondering what's next. So it was a totally surreal.
And then his earpiece is like, your submarine's ready.
Yeah. He just disappears through the floor. Yeah.
But no invite to the wedding.
No invite to the wedding.
Michael, you get invited? I didn't go. I didn't get the invite.
I think I was on the tier 2.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Which was, I believe, funny. Apps, serving apps.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
Okay.
If Carrot Top couldn't go, I'd be there.
Okay, sounds good.
We were talking a little bit ago about creativity, getting sober, and realizing that not only can you still tap into your creativity, it becomes this like, kind of rebirth of it. But how do each of you think about creativity now? Like when you sit down to write, like you're collaborating on this script, but writing is still a solitary act and you kind of have to inhabit a certain state. Are you, a Stephen Pressfield, court the muse, get your ass in the chair kind of person? Is it a situation where you're dancing around and acting it out? Like, how does it work for you?
I think Stephen Pressfield's book is actually the one book on screenwriting that's actually of value and on creativity. It is just, about presence. It's interesting because when you were talking about what it meant to be sober and just becoming present and relying on other people for your sobriety, that is kind of how I think about creativity now, is like, it might sound woo-woo, but it is really about just trying to be a clear channel for what does God want of me, or the God, or whatever your higher power is. But like, being of service in terms of like, what does the world need now? What am I excited about? What is coming through me? Who else can I serve? Who can be my co-conspirator? Who's a person I want to spend years with making a movie? Who do I want to hang out with? Who do I love? Who's going to love me when times get hard? It's weirdly, I think, like it's like kind of creating the thing that we're all missing now, which is the village, which we have moved away from, and we all live in our pods with our computers and phones. If we're lucky, our spouse and our kids, but like, and so I think it's all that feeling of like, trying to create something that matters and that can be given to other people. And the older I get, the more that I'm just trying to purify that channel and make it as clean as possible, because it's just not about me. And the more that it's about me, the muddier and grosser it feels. Of course, there are things inside of me like, I needed this movie. I needed this movie as much as Michael needed this movie. I was fallow as an artist. I was scared to direct a movie without my brother. I was terrified that I was going to make a movie and it was going to suck, and I was going to be like, oh, he was the special sauce. I didn't want to be. Oh, wow. I didn't want to be.
So that's the dark secret, like the insecurity. Like, they'll finally see that it was just all Mark.
It was all Mark. Yeah. And Mark is like, I'm, like Mark said, I'm the guy who'll do the $150 movie, and I'm more inward, and Mark's very outward in the world. Much more visible and present. And he's a producer by nature. And, he really likes, he wants to go to South by Southwest and give a talk about all the stuff we talk about. I'm just having enough trouble, pushing this movie through the eye of a needle, so we've always been that way, where I'm more inward and he's more outward. And that's been an interesting part of us doing things separately, is us having to become whole people again, because you sort of compartmentalize, and he got really good at being outward and I got really good at being inward. So
there's been a lot of ink spilled around this, this relationship evolving.
Yeah. Yes.
Is there anything you want to say about that?
Yeah. I mean, I would say that like Mark and I started as two immigrant kids to Hollywood, who were like linked arm in arm, like we talked about, and felt like we needed to do everything in lockstep in order to make a splash enough to where we wouldn't have to like go back to Louisiana, go back to New Orleans, which is the story, as we know, of Hollywood, is like people move and then they move back. They get sent home, you know? And, you know, as we progressed, you know, I think our first big hiccup is Mark became a famous actor. And all I wanted to do was to be, you know, the Coen Brothers 2.0 with him. And that process was, you know, it was very difficult because, you know, to get a movie made, you have to obey that movie. That movie is so much bigger than you know, and Mark was very unavailable for a long time. And it took me a long time to figure out how to navigate that. I created a TV show called Togetherness, and you know, he was able to star in it, and we were able to work on that together. And over time, it took us a long time to realize that at my heart of hearts, I just wanted to be a filmmaker, a writer, director, and Mark didn't really want that. You know, he wanted to be an actor and a producer. But, you know, we're two guys who felt lucky to be here. We didn't want to rock the boat. You know, it was a long... It was like a very loving, conscious uncoupling, but it took a really long time. It was like a tough process. You know, I felt like he was leaving me early on, and he felt like I was leaving him later on. And it was kind of like a, you know, getting like a super friendly divorce where we were trying to take care of each other as much as possible. And we're finally at a place now where we run this company together, and we still support other people, and we support each other in the ways that we can. But it was a long time coming, and you know, it was tough on me. I mean, it definitely the reason why I didn't make a movie for 14 years. And you know, it took me. That was what was, you know, super scary about, you know, making a new movie and you know, but, you know, I just tried to keep it small and trust my heart. And luckily this thing came out to be a dream come true.
So it's so much more than just, this is my first time directing without my brother.
So much more. It's all my worst fears.
Because if you could just, you know, get some momentum with this, then it alleviates whatever
it does.
You know, weird tension and energy. You know,
it alleviates
it will improve
tension.
your relationship with your brother. Like,
absolutely,
you know,
and
because if you're both fully expressed in doing what you're doing, then you can come together.
Then we can come together and actually
and
be brothers and make art when it makes sense for us to make art together. But no, it was absolutely terrifying, and you know, just I mean, you know, the fear is like, Mark is the special sauce. I can't make anything without him. He doesn't want to make movies with me, so I don't make movies anymore. That's honestly was in the back of my head the whole time, you know. Well,
this was the growth and evolution that you needed. Like you needed to do this as an artist. And for yourself.
I did. Yeah. I deeply, deeply needed it. And I think similar to how you guys have talked about with AA, like, you know, I had probably 7 scripts. They were all more expensive. I had made a movie in 14 years. So people in Hollywood are like, yeah, you're not a filmmaker anymore. You got to make a movie recently to show them that you're a filmmaker and you're still good. Those movies were more expensive. There were a lot more personal stories about me, which I can tell those stories now. But like, I tried to move a lot of those stories forward, and it was a really tough time with the pandemic and with the strikes, and you know, the timing just didn't work, and I just kept retreating, and it felt negative at first, and then I realized I was coming back to my roots and, you know, how I sort of invented this way of making films, which is like using real people and telling their stories and honoring them, and you know, doing it handmade in a small city somewhere or a medium-sized city somewhere. And
where no one will bother us.
Where no one will bother us, exactly. But it was ultimately, I think, just serving Michael and his story and knowing that it wasn't about me and that I could really focus on him. That, to me, was my personal linchpin, because I don't have that thing in me that's just like, oh, my story needs to get out there. This needs to be told. I'd much rather serve somebody else. And once we got into that pipeline, I was like, it just flowed like that.
One of the reasons why I think it's being really well received. And we should say, like, we're recording this before it's out in the world. Like,
Yes.
we're talking about film festival audiences.
Yes.
So it's like, these people want to like the movie, you know,
Yes.
but all the reviews are like incredibly good right now.
Yes.
I think it speaks to this yearning that we have for something that feels real and authentic, you know, and the movies are they're so big now. They're so you know, special effected out, and the stories are so you know, unrelatable. Everything is supersized so much that
and every character
we haven't been served, like we haven't been nourished, you know, with just like the human story that we can relate to, that reminds us that we're human when we see people that that look real and feel real because they are real people, and they're just having a human problem that they're trying to figure out.
And there was so much value in like casting Michael, and he's the guy. This essentially happened in spirit, and a lot of these events are true. That was a huge value to me, is because I was after exactly that. Is like feeling something that is undeniably real and has value. And you know, I think there are some good superhero movies out there, but I said this once at a SAG Screen Actors Guild event, and I thought it was going to be a lot more controversial than it was. But I don't think people's thinking was, I'm not trying to say I was so advanced, but I just think people were not quite thinking this way. But I think the younger generation is thinking this way. And my idea around it is that our cultural mythology is broken. People talk about this across various medium, but I think it's actually most visible in filmmaking, because ultimately, our cultural mythology in America right now is represented in a superhero movie. And that myth is there's bad people and there's good people. We're the good people. And the bad people are very, very scary. But what we need to do is lift weights and buy more guns and kill all those bad people. And when we do that, everything will be good. And nothing could be more broken. Nothing could be more true in terms of our foreign policy. Nothing could be, you know, more dangerous for this world and where we're going. And, you know, I think, you know, I'm not trying to save the world with these tiny little movies, but, you know, Joseph Campbell said stories are equipment for living. And it took me a long, long time to understand what that really meant. You said it earlier. It's like, you know, a story is a way to change people's minds and change people's culture. I saw it with Transparent. You know, people had no tolerance for trans people, and suddenly people were watching this show and there was a trans person in their living room and they were laughing and enjoying them and watching them operate in the world. And so, you know, to be able to contribute to our cultural mythology and to tell stories about people who are trying to recover and you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards, and making us laugh and falling in love and getting their hearts broken. And, you know, and frankly, like using Michael's journey and the courage that he displayed to recover and to stay sober, that is additive to our culture. And it's additive to your Saturday night when you're like, boy, that was a tough week, you know? Because I think the superhero movies feel really good in the moment, and then you go home and they just feel so far away. You know, they're not really like nourishing the soul in a way that, you know, stories can.
I think you're not leaving talking about it. You're just like, oh yeah, that was good.
Right.
Or, you know,
right.
it's like, and I think the best thing about our movie is that like, there's conversation after, you know, like when we did test screenings, like, you know, like Jay would ask a question and the audience was like split. And he's like, we have a movie now, because now that audience can go and talk about, well, I saw it as this. Did you see it as that? You know? And I don't know. I just personally I like seeing movies that have flawed characters that are trying to kind of do their best in their everyday life, but still mess up, you know? Like my guy is by no means, no one's perfect. And that's the whole thing that I think we need to, because I think so much of the superhero movies, these people are perfect, you know, or, you know,
or they have flaws in very like simple ways that just, it just feels like a token flaw.
I mean, I think it's very astute. This actually came up on the podcast I was doing yesterday with this like Jungian psychotherapist, and he was talking about, how modern culture has been, drained of a shared mythology, and we've outsourced it to, basically the superhero movies that we see, and these are the stories that create, our kind of sense of meaning, in the world, which is really fascinating, but obviously makes sense when, we become more secular and we don't have the kind of community gathering spots and the, spiritual institutions and churches and things like that. Like what are we gathering around? Well, we're gathering around, the cinema and these ideas that we're all kind of collectively absorbing simultaneously. But for the filmmaker who does want to speak to the human condition, given the business model of Hollywood right now, they have to do it within the context of a superhero story. And there are good versions of that and not so good ones. When I think about that, I think about like what Tony Gilroy is doing with Andor, which I think is just some of the most exceptional storytelling.
Well, Michael Clayton is like one of the best movies ever.
It's my favorite movie.
Same.
It's my favorite movie. I literally watch it every 3 months.
Yes. It's brilliant.
It's like reading the Bible.
But, I mean, that guy...
I actually saw a clip of Clooney the other day. He was talking about that last scene where he's driving in the car, and they're like, "It's some of your best acting ever. Like, what? Like, how are you doing this?"
I saw that clip.
Yeah. And he was like, "Well, to be honest with you, we didn't know what we were doing. This was like the last shot, and Tony was just like, yeah, just go in the car and just ask to go somewhere." And everybody on the street in New York is yelling, "Clooney! Clooney! George!"
While that sacred moment was happening.
He's just trying not to laugh the whole time. But it's this incredible, for people who haven't seen it, it's this like very long shot. He's in the back of the cab and it's just driving. This is the end of the movie, which is like the quintessential, this is how movies in the 70s ended. It's definitely a shout out to that. It's very effective, but then you hear like, now like when you make a movie, what you were saying, like I'm on a street in Baltimore, it's like 2 a.m. and there's a drug deal going on around the corner and the cops are about to come and all that kind of stuff. The reality of that. But Kathleen Kennedy should put Tony Gilroy in charge of anything having to do with Star Wars
for
100%. for
years and years
as long
to come.
as he's willing to do it, and he should make every decision regarding that.
Yeah.
Let's end this with a little insight or inspiration for the aspiring artists. I think there's one thing that both of you guys share, which is that both of you are people who pretty early in life had a good sense of what you wanted to do. And I think that's unusual. Like that's rare. Not everybody feels that way, but I think everybody has some kind of creative inspiration. They want to give voice to some idea that they have in any number of ways. And society doesn't do a very good job of encouraging that. So, how would you give words to that person who's...
I mean, it sounds cliche, but like, don't give up, like I had, similar to you, like so many jobs that like didn't go my way, over and over and over again, testing for shows, doing stuff. And I'm like, why am I still doing it? Like, that thought of like, is it time to go back to Baltimore? Is it time to call it? And it just takes one person in the field of Hollywood to be yes. And then I think Jay even said it to me once, like Hollywood loves being the second yes, and like just do whatever you like, fail over and over and over again, get back up, fail some more. But just like know that like no matter what, like if this is what you really want to do for your life, anything in the creative field, just do it and not worry about what other people are telling you to do or not do, And I would be remiss if I didn't, since we mentioned Zach earlier, my siblings and my cousin started a foundation in his name, ZTP Foundation, that helps out people in Zach's age range in Maryland to basically like sponsor them to go to rehab. And so
that's cool.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make sure I mentioned that before because, like, especially with sobriety too, like the term keep coming back, but also like just stay. Because like
don't leave before the miracle.
Yeah, don't leave before the miracle, because right now I am living like the most miraculous life, and it's 100% due to my sobriety. And I'm so grateful, like every day, that like that that this little tiny movie about my life, based on my life and made in my hometown with family and friends and with somebody that took a chance on me, it can happen. It really can. And I'm living proof. And I just am so happy. I absolutely love my life today. And I was this close to missing it all.
Well, I can't top that.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good one.
That's a good one. That's a pretty good one.
You can definitely top it. You're like...
Oh, yeah. No. I mean, I guess the extra piece of advice that I would give for up-and-coming filmmakers and artists, everyone, is a little bit of a riff on The Perfect Day, which I know you're a huge fan of. And it's, I call it making good days. And I feel like my job is just to make the best day I can make on any given day. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, the night before. If something doesn't feel right, or if I feel too overloaded, I'll try and slide something to later in the week. And it's specifically with art making, it really comes down to, are you going to be making art tomorrow? Are you going to do it? Because like I said, a lot of people like to talk about making art, mm-hmm. and they don't make art. It's also way easier to talk about making art. Making art involves, fail, repeat, fail, repeat. So the other thing that's really tricky, and there's no judgment on this, but a lot of people want to have made art. They want to be at the Oscars. They want to be at the Golden Globes, whatever it may be. And I'll just put it out here this way, is the real artists, most of them don't want to be at those events. They would rather be at home continuing to make their art. So in terms of merging those things, in terms of making a really good day and making your art, even at this point in my life, I find it hard to carve out 2 or 3 hours to make art on a Tuesday. I have to really be concerted about it because, people are banging on your door to do everything in this world, to pay bills, to move your damn car, to whatever it is that's going on. People are always banging on your door to do stuff. And it's never to make an original, earth-shattering piece of art. No one is doing that. That is up to you to do it.
There's too many emails from your kid's school that you have to read.
How do people do it?
I don't know.
That could be a full-time job is answering your kids' school's emails and attending their events, and doing fundraising for your kids' school.
But you're happy you had them and you love them.
Absolutely, 100%. As one of my friends said, having children is 51% worth it. But yeah, I really do believe that, and really be honest with yourself is like, how much art do you want to make in a day, and really tuning in, because the more that I go, it really is, it's less about making art and more just about me being true to myself and just witnessing how much art is going to come out of that, because I'm not really interested anymore in forcing art, because that creates collapse, like overworking creates collapse, and of course we have to feed our families and we have to do all the things that we need to do. But I mean, to me, it comes down to tuning into who you are and listening. And that's what's going to tell you what you uniquely have to offer the world. Because like you said, we all have our heroes and we want to be like them, but sometimes we're not like them ultimately, or what we uniquely have to offer is not what they have to offer. Tuning into that thing is not what's taught in film school. It's not taught in our culture. Mm-hmm. That's why your podcast is so incredible. Is it helps me tune in to what I'm doing and why I'm here and what gives me life. So I think that's the best piece of advice I can give to any artist.
pretty good advice, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's the killer.
He's
He
pretty
couldn't.
good.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah, it's about integrity with self, like integrating who you are. Like your art is an expression of your authentic voice. You're not out there to like get invited to a party or be validated for it. Like the reward is the work, which is a reflection of the inner self.
And I've been to those parties where like I wasn't, sober, and we would be writing the biggest screenplay ever.
Yeah, sure,
midway through the night, doing all
that.
this, like all that stuff. We never talked about that screenplay again.
Mm-hmm.
It's like doing the work and actually.
Yeah, because the people who are actually doing the thing are not at the parties because they're doing the thing, and even if they're probably invited and they choose not to go because like they're more compelled by the pull, the yearn to like express themselves, and time's precious, and if you're doing that at a high level, there are people pulling on you all the time and tempting you with all kinds of delicious offers to go here or do this or that. Speaking of which, like the movie's not out yet, but is your phone ringing? Are you getting? Is there like a little bit of like activity going on?
There's a little
in a way there wasn't before.
There's a little bit of stuff happening, but not nothing crazy yet. The movie hasn't come out yet, but I'm sure.
I want it to come out. I want it to be super successful, and all I want for you is to like go back to Baltimore and just walk down the street and have like and you can be like Clooney in the back of the cab with like the that's
Strasshole,
like hometown hero.
That would be.
We are having a huge premiere in Baltimore.
Oh, you are?
At the Classic Theater there.
Yes, the Senator Theater.
And
on September 10th, I believe.
Oh, nice.
And
it's doing anything here in LA?
Yeah, we're gonna have a few events here. We're gonna show it vidiots. We'll absolutely.
You were in.
If I'm gonna get anything out of it,
of course.
If you want to see it again, that'd be amazing.
Yeah,
we're gonna have a few events here. We're gonna have premieres in New York. Michael and I are gonna do an old school road show where we go to like 10 or 12 cities. We're going to do press. We're going to introduce movies. We're going to really personalize the experience.
Cool. Like that's like a Kevin Smith vibe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're going to go like
Boston, Chicago, Austin, Houston, Baltimore,
Nashville, Seattle,
and New York.
And they're going to fly us around, and we're going to like go and be there in person. And Michael's going to cry on stage after and say he's glad to be alive.
Yeah, I'm super vulnerable. And we got to thank IFC for all of that.
Yeah, IFC and Saipan Films.
Yeah, Saipan Films have been, Josh has been incredible.
Yeah.
Well, you guys did an amazing job. It's a really beautiful movie.
Thank you for having us.
Thank
you for supporting us.
And to see it. Yeah. Thanks for spending a couple hours with me, man. This was great.
The dream,
this
man.
is awesome.
Dream come true for me.
I'm in my favorite show. What are you talking about,
secretly,
man?
I want to just host a movies podcast. Like
you could do that, Rich. You could do that.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think
so. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you,
Rich. Thanks so much for doing this. And
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.